And companies all across the board are expected to tighten their budgets heading into 2024. And that means you may have to wait a little longer for that raise or promotion. So how do you make sure you get noticed in the workplace? Well, finance professor Dan Roccato to the rescue. He joins us this morning. And thanks so much for being here today. So
good morning, Roseanne. How about that big raise you got this year, right?
Well, Dan, I will ask you, it does seem like there's a bit of a slowdown, and why is that?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my big raise too. So what companies are saying is that next year they're planning to tighten the belts a little bit. So this year the average raise was about 4.7%. Next year we're looking at maybe 3.8. But equally important, Roseanne, is they're cutting back on promotions. At least a lot of big companies plan to do that to flatten their organizations, which means, of course, less opportunities to advance and less pay. They're also doing things like higher co-pays. You're going to pay a little bit more for your insurance. It's all part of the same theme. Inflation touches them too, and they're trying to reduce costs.
Right, that big slowdown. How can you try to stand out in such a tough environment?
Yeah, well, that's the important thing, right? You and I can't control what the employer's doing. We can't control what the overall economy is doing, but we can control, for example, if we ask for additional responsibilities, or maybe we volunteer for a new project at work, one that gives us a bit more visibility and perhaps a path to another job or a raise. Maximize your other benefits. I see this mistake all the time, Roseanne. You and I, we focus on our pay, which is important, but we tend to neglect other things. Like, for example, a lot of companies do tuition reimbursement, not just for their employees. Some of them actually do it for their employees' children as well. That can be a huge, huge, valuable, benefit, perk that we get. So they're the kind of things that I tell folks to, concentrate on. And also, at some point, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. And, maybe there's a cubicle outside of your building that's just empty waiting for you. It makes sense sometimes to change employers, and studies have shown when you and I do that, we tend to get a higher raise than we would if we stayed with our current employer. That could be an option next year as well.
So maybe don't be frightened about looking for another opportunity. Could be the time.
And you have to be your own advocate. At the end of the day, what you and I have learned, over the last few years, if anything else, is you and I have to advocate for ourselves. At the end of the day, that's what's going to come down to.
Yeah, but I like the idea that you point out, look for those other perks. Dan Roccato, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great weekend.